Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly Profile here, and welcome. Welcome to one of our great expert guests. Uh, we always love to have him on. And we're talking about Dustin Rank. You've seen him before. Really smart guy. Uh, Knows his way around. He's a licensed private detective. And he's really got a lot of experience with gangs, art, tattoo, you name it. Dustin's been there, he's done it. Okay. And he's quite the professional. So we're very happy to have him on today. Also, I want to thank everybody for their purchases of Discovering Lazarus. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for all your positive feedback. Thanks for all your purchases. Yep, the good, the bad, the ugly of John Kelly Profiler. How I kicked a horrible cocaine addiction, became a counselor, a psychotherapist, and then on to becoming a profiler. Again, thank you so much. So, looking at what we have today, the name of our show today is LA Model and Rachel Morin. Are they connected? Dustin, are they connected? And I want the audience to respond to us after you listen to us because nobody else has done this. We're the only people that came across this and are bringing this out. Okay? So please, we want your feedback on this. We always want to know what you think. And we appreciate your comments. And if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. Dustin, from your point of view, and then I'll do mine afterwards, how do you see the connection? You picked up on the geography there pretty much, spot on. You want to talk about that?
Sure, John. Yeah, and thanks again for having me back on the show. Yeah, this was an interesting kind of thing. This like happened pretty quickly as we were kind of chopping this up together. Like from a geography standpoint, we've got this assault, right, that's tied to Rachel Morin out there in Maryland. Well, that's down there and kind of centralized Los Angeles, as we were digging into this model thing. These two girls up here in LA, like, we're talking like 7 miles away. It isn't far, but LA is a high traffic zone, man. It's got a lot going on there. It's got a lot of crime. But what stood out to me was, well, there was two things that stood out kind of right away was, we've got, even though we've got two commercial buildings and a residential building, technically, a house, there's a lot of similarities there, John. If we're looking at, we got these two high-rise apartment complexes, right? Well, you're going to get into an area where, you just can't walk into those things. Like they got some level of security. Now, I haven't been to those places in downtown LA, but you can better believe they, at the bare minimum, have key card entry, right? Or a keypad or, an app-based, locking system, which they have. Not anybody can just like roam around in there, which got me thinking, there's been between those two buildings and this residential place in LA, like those are high risk, high traffic areas. Not to mention, John, like, we've got a response time at LAPD. We got a precinct that sits right between those two locations, and if you're looking at just drive time, it's only 7 minutes, it's not far at all. This guy, whoever it is, and if this stuff is connected, somehow he's getting access. We got this B&E in the residential area in South Central there, but how did he get into the apartments? That's the thing. Well, we started thinking here, unless it's a familiar, right? But we've got two girls that have wound up dead about a mile apart, pretty similar circumstances, similar, ingress and egress. Unless it's a familiar, your suspect pool is going to go down pretty quick because anybody that goes in and out of that building, John, that, whether it's a delivery service or a maintenance crew, all of which those buildings have, or at least the two buildings in downtown, they have to. They have to maintain them. They have to keep them up. So a lot of times, the owners or the investment companies will contract out with a cleaning service or whatever for for something that large. They're not just going to hire a couple of guys to like roam around. There might be a dude that's on site or something for emergencies, but they're going to contract out for that sort of thing. So anybody that's coming and going, whether it's delivery, maintenance, which is on schedule, they have to access, digitally some sort of entry code or something. Well, all that gets, it may not get logged in a secure server, but you can better believe that the management has some sort of log of what goes on, because they have to keep track of who's coming and going. They can't just let people in and out of there, and they need to know what's happening. Now, that might not apply to tenants because there's some privacy issues there a little bit. And I'm not, I'm certainly not an attorney, but absolutely for building maintenance, cleaning crews. And, if we've got this residence down there in LA, I don't know if the residents, people that own that building actually live there, or that's an investment company. But you've got two similar areas that, for similar and a few different reasons, that are that's a high risk jam, man. I mean, trying to get in there and out of there with nobody noticing anything different. It's got to be somebody that's, casing that area. And in the case of, like, let's say this guy is a delivery guy, or he's working in the maintenance world or whatever. I mean, those dudes are around all the time. So they're not necessarily, people don't really look at them like, oh, hey, it's the XYZ delivery dude or whatever. And those shifts change too. They rotate them around. And they also have limited service areas. On a place like where I live, you might be in a 20-mile, maybe even 40-mile diameter delivery radius. Like in LA, I got to believe it's a lot smaller because it's so hard to get around. So that was something that struck me right out of the gate, is the ingress, egress, and being able to track who's coming in and out of the buildings. And the other thing, John, is we know that Rachel, was beaten really severely. And now we've got one of these models that we don't know for sure if she was beaten, but at the scene was described that she was unrecognizable. So that, like really caught my attention with that for sure, and really stood out. That's a heck of a coincidence. We still don't have a cause of death yet, at least as far as it being released on the other girl that was just up the street there in DTLA, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, okay, we've got a killer's DNA in LA. And then we have a killer's DNA in Maryland. Okay. So then the question is, well, where's he from? Where's he at? What's he's doing? What's going on? Now, this type of killer, everybody and their brothers came out and said, this guy will kill again. All right. This is the type. This guy doesn't stop. I totally agree. We got together with our team, and Frank Adamson from our team said, this reminds me of a Bundy type character. Okay. Now we know Bundy, no way, no how could he stop. I mean, that guy just could not stop no matter what, even when they were after him. And I believe, and we put it out there before in the last vid we did, that we felt that this guy definitely couldn't stop. Well, anyway, and we brought out there's going to be more bodies sooner than later. Okay. So then all of a sudden we have these two models, okay, that are found dead. All right. One, law enforcement said was murdered. Okay. They didn't get into manner of death. And on the second one, they have not said she was murdered yet, and they have not gotten into manner of death, but we've heard some feedback from family members, right? So in looking at these cases and looking at what's going on here, I mean, we have to take into consideration that, Rachel was a very, very beautiful looking woman. Okay. And as I was pondering this around the other night, running through it all in my mind, and that's when I got in touch with you, Dustin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, she reminds me of a model.
Yeah.
I mean, Rachel really took care of herself, really gorgeous, beautiful girl, had her life snuffed out on her, right? And she had similar characteristics that a model would have. Okay, she looked like a model to me. So then I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a second. Maybe she didn't have a job as a model, but she looked like a model. These other girls are models. They look like models, right? I mean, so, this is about 7 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is from the first break-in where we have DNA from, where they have DNA from, or
Mhm.
something like that many minutes or something, or 20 minutes. How many minutes was it exactly? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, geez. That's yeah,
I,
it's about a 20-minute drive
yeah,
from,
yeah, we
the house, but like the police response time is like, because they got a
like, yeah,
precinct
that's
right.
it, 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's like right in the middle there. So, man, they get a call, they're on it.
They're on it fast. And that goes into our high risk category for this type of personality, this type of serial killer. Okay. He may not be a serial killer yet, but he's budding. He's a budding serial killer. I'll call him that. It could be a serial killer already. I don't know. But, they love high risk. I mean, they get off on that. The stimulation, of the forbidden, the high risk is very important to them. Lots of times it causes them to be extremely impulsive, because they get a rush and a half out of, a high risk situation. So that jumps in, that piece of it fits in as well. All right. The other thing I have a concern with is the you know no possible physical connection yet that law enforcement came out with. They didn't say anything about any DNA at these two murder scenes. Okay, so I mean I'm a little concerned about that. Maybe they're just keeping, and obviously they're keeping a lot of this under their hat. But we could, we knew we were going to have live wire with this guy. We knew he was a live wire. And now I think we have a really active, live wire. I really believe that. And, I think he can hide himself and has hid himself pretty good in the LA area. I mean, what's your thinking about that? How does he just melt in? And going back to the first house, obviously there were people in that house that saw him. Okay,
Yeah.
because we know that the person that let him out the door probably saw him, but there were other people even in the house. Dustin, how does that go with people? Are they scared because he might be ganged up or whatever, or just in fear? I mean, why is there not a sketch of what he looks like? Why is there not a major description out there? I mean, what's going on with that? Why the silence coming out of that house?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, right? Because not only is it, I mean, and it's a multi-family dwelling too. So I mean, this dude's, if that's how he's getting in the house, if he's breaking in there, like he's not just breaking into the person's house that he's getting into, but you've got proximity of people literally on the other side of the wall, not to mention that place is surrounded by eyeballs, like from every direction. I mean, plus you got a tremendous amount of gang activity in there. Why somebody wouldn't, produce, like go to the police and produce a sketch or whatever. Like I said, I couldn't even find a record of that assault taking place. Now, that doesn't mean LAPD is not doing their job, or I'm not coming down on them. There's a lot of ways to report crime. And that simply, if the girl is not pressing charges, yeah, she could have been absolutely, like, who wouldn't be afraid of that? Like, especially as a minor, and if, if I had a minor kid and I'm living in a high traffic gang zone, yeah, it'd be a hard call to make, right? Is to identify this guy, because like, if there even is a gang angle, I mean, those guys are, they're highly connected to each other, across the entire city, even across the entire country, especially now with, tools and technology that we have. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me. I keep, been trying to keep track of that to see if maybe, like as we talk about this, Rachel, and now we've got these two models, hopefully that will add a little bit of weight to the importance to that family, and maybe that minor that this is a really big deal. But yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be terrified to, it's one thing like where I live to dime somebody that breaks into your house, if somebody even gets that far with it where I live. But, in LA, man, that's you got people got to understand, like, unless you live there and how gnarly the crime is. And like those guys are brutal, they're been in and out of prison their whole life. They got generations of people in prison. Like, you're not safe, like you're gonna have to like book it out of town. Now this dude, and I don't know if he is from LA, but yeah, there's almost no way, John, and you've said this a million times, like, these guys watch the news, they keep tabs on this stuff. I mean, if this guy, unless this guy's living on Mars, he's got to know that ring footage or that doorbell footage is out there of him exiting that house. So yeah, boom, he splits to Maryland. Why, I don't know, but he's getting out of town. It's about from LA, if you're in the, United States, other than Portland, Maine, that's about as far as you can go. You know what I mean? So he goes out there, he lays low for a while, maybe he bounces around. And, if his comfort zone's in LA, that's what he's comfortable with. If that's where he's been, like, making his bones with burglaries or assaults, or, he might have people there too. It's not real hard to go underground in a place like LA, believe it or not, despite all the technology and all the eyeballs. You got 17 million people down there, like you just blend into the crowd. And it is really easy to disappear compared to a place, you know, like maybe Iowa, where it's real spread out and all the neighbors know everybody and everybody knows everybody from 3 or 4 counties around. Like, you know, it's just not as hard to just walk into a crowd, man, and disappear, and especially if you're, like in any kind of profession that's moving around, whether it's in construction or whatever it is. And I'm not saying that this guy is, man, those guys they're bouncing around a town, sometimes multiple states on a pretty regular basis. And we know, and John, you said this a bunch, like Bundy's an example, like, man, that dude wasn't afraid to travel at all,
Yeah.
So the fact that this guy's like going from LA to Maryland and back to LA, like I've heard people like try to discount that. And I'm not buying that at all, man. Those guys will go wherever the action is, and wherever their self-preservation's at. So if this guy is back working in LA, it really tells me he's probably got a home base there and he's got some people there or something. He's got some sort of security net there in his mind, at least, or at least that's his comfort zone. And that's where he's back to. So
Yeah, I agree. And these guys love the action. Again,
love it.
They love the action, they love the stimulation, they love to be on the hunt. They can't get enough of it. Bottom line with this guy, I mean, this guy really really has to be uh under the radar and hooked up somehow, because people are afraid to, or it seems people are afraid to do a sketch about him. People are afraid
Mm-hmm.
to openly describe him. Nobody is answering the reward that has been put up. Okay. I mean, let's face it, this guy hasn't been living under a rock, right? I mean, there's
Right. Yeah.
people that know who this guy is. They know who he is. They
Yeah.
know who he is. And man, they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They don't want to talk about it. So, I have to believe they're really intimidated, and we'll see. We'll see. But I just think it's very interesting that DNA found
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes away from two beautiful girls that were murdered in LA. And that DNA happens to be connected to a beautiful girl that was murdered in
Yeah.
Maryland. It's just it's just there's such a thing as coincidence, but I'm not big on coincidence, and I just think you got a predator working an area, you know, uh 20 minutes is nothing, So we'll
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
we're just gonna have to wait and see. I mean, that's all we can do. Hopefully more people will report on this and dig in, and hopefully we're gonna have more feedback from law enforcement, and we're going to get this guy sooner or later because he's not killed already since Rachel or before Rachel. He will be killing again soon, no doubt in my mind. So, anyway, is there anything you'd like to say before we break?
Yeah, I might just throw a quick add into all this, and John, you had mentioned this guy like being on the hunt, right? Like all the time, like trying to find these opportunities or being in situations where opportunities are preventing or present themselves. I'm looking at these places in downtown LA. It's not like these girls are out washing the car or whatever. You know what I mean? Like if he's going to have access I mean, you got to remember too, like, when you've got a maintenance staff in a place, now by law, you got to give notice, like if you're going to enter somebody's apartment. But, if we've got a criminal operating inside those buildings with whatever profession he's doing, like he's not going to care about no 24-hour rule, like if that guy's got access. Because a lot of times, typically, the interiors, it's not like a hotel in a lot of places. You got keyed locks inside, but you got, electronic getting in and out of the building. So, man, he could have seen her at the gym in there. He could be delivering packages there. He could be working on her apartment. And you brought this up last time too, John. And I don't remember exactly what show it was about this guy taking trophies. So if he's got access to this building, on whatever level he's got, and he's got access to those apartments, I'm really curious as to know, are people missing stuff out of there? Are women missing some of their personal stuff? It would be if the building management is watching this, it'd be a good thing to, if you've overheard it or, might be a good idea to mention it to maybe some of the tenants there. Hey man, are you missing some things that, it's not like a sock goes missing out of the dryer. I mean, so it would be pretty noticeable if one day you got, an article or a keepsake or something, and boom, like all of a sudden it shows up missing. It makes me really concerned that, if he's got access to those apartments and other buildings, man, that's a dangerous guy.
Exactly. And you know what? Even if we take the killer of Rachel Morin and put him off to the side for a minute, we still have cops on the record, LA cops on the record, saying that Melissa Mooney, right? Yeah, Melissa Mooney was murdered. Okay. We have them on the record stating that. Okay. Then we have this other one that was murdered as well. Okay. I mean, it's right down, I think it's within a mile away,
Yeah.
And we're talking about Nicole Cote, I mean, it's just like incredible, that we have this. So even if we have, this budding serial that was in Maryland, who, did some burglaries or invasions in LA off to the side, we still have a player. There's still a new player then, okay, that's in LA, at least we know for one.
Right.
Somebody murdered that girl. Okay.
That's right.
So this is I don't want people to lose sight of this because this is really, important stuff. And we have two live wires running around, right? I mean, stranger things have happened within, 20 minutes of each other, whatever. I mean, this is what you got to think about it. Think about it and work it all out. But anything else you'd like to share before we break?
No, that's kind of where we're at with, what we know now about these cases. Like you said, John, everybody, law enforcement's playing it pretty tight right now. So we'll just have to, like keep digging and keep watching for what they're releasing,
Absolutely. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for your expertise. We always love having you. We'll put a link in. We'll put a link in to your art. Okay. We have to remember to do that. Please check Dustin's art out as well. He's really a cool artist. And, to our audience, I can't thank you enough for watching us today. You're terrific. You guys really are intelligent. You have a lot of good feedback. We know we read all your comments. We answer the ones you want us to answer. And please give us your feedback here. What do you think? Do we have a killer running back and forth between states? Do we just have a killer in LA? Do we have, two serial killers, working opposite of each other within the 20-minute area? I mean, I don't know. There's lots to be looked at here, and there's not a whole lot of information, but I don't want the victims to be forgotten. These cases have to be worked and worked hard. I'm sure the LA detectives are doing a great job. I know Maryland's doing a great job, and they're not going to lose sight of these victims and their families. But there's so much going on all over these days that the sooner we catch these guys, the better off everybody's going to be, because people can be really transient and do a lot of damage in their travels, if you know what I mean. So again, to the audience, thank you very much. We can't thank you enough. Please be safe out there. Rough times, violent times, and most importantly, stay on your toes, keep a focus on yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. Have a nice day.
Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate you having me back on the show. It's always good talking to you.
Our
Yeah.
pleasure.
Big shout out to your audience too. They're always great to
Yeah, they
interact
love
with.
it.
So
They
thank
love
you
it.
guys. Yeah. They're awesome.